grades 9 through 12 to begin considering their vocation from God by speaking with priests and seminarians. For more information and to register, visit fwdioc.org and click on events.
Families from 30 different zip codes from throughout the Dallas area provide their children the Catholic classical education uniquely offered at Mount St. Michael Catholic School. A classical education respects the natural development of the child, grounds students in the tools of learning so as to delve more deeply into the content, and expands the child's understanding of what is authentically good, true, and beautiful. To learn more, visit our website, msmcatholic.org. Mount St. Michael Catholic School is a sponsor of the GRN.
Project Finding Calcutta is creating a brand new program. The new program will intentionally reach into the lives of those they visit and support. Project Finding Calcutta is looking for full-time missionaries as they embark on this new journey. A small stipend and housing are provided with a 1-year commitment. Visiting the elderly, sharing meals with the homeless, and helping low-income families are just a few ways we are called to love and serve. For more information, contact Anand, founder of Project Finding Calcutta, at Anand, that's ANAND, at projectfindingcalcutta.com.
Thanks for listening to KATH 910 AM, Frisco, Dallas, Fort Worth. Catholic radio for your soul on the Guadalupe Radio Network in North Texas. Heard also at grnonline.com and on your smartphone.
Welcome to The Quest from the studios of the Guadalupe Radio Network. Join us as we journey together on this pilgrimage of faith. And now your host, Sarah Soto.
Hey y'all, it's good to be with you on this beautiful Monday. I'm a Catholic wife, mom, and speaker. If you want to contact me for more information or file any formal complaints about what I'm going to talk about today, you can visit my website at sarahsotospeaks.com. That's sarahsotospeaks.com. Listen, folks, longtime listeners, friends of the Guadalupe Radio Network, today's show sounds a little different. If perhaps you didn't hear or you haven't heard any of our announcements, A Life Lived Joyfully is now called The Quest. Same great hosts, same fantastic content. Orthodox, true, good, beautiful, exciting, chatty. But we're so happy to be here with you all on The Quest. And I have to ask to our fantastic producer, Matt, what is The Quest? I have college degrees, is what I said.
Nice job.
Yeah, thanks. What is The Quest all about? Matt, can you tell us?
Well, you know, The Quest is a journey. Sometimes that phrase is overused in the Catholic and the Christian world, but I think I'm 99% sure it was Saint Therese of Lisieux. If it was Saint Teresa of Avila, I apologize, but I'm pretty sure it's Saint Therese of Lisieux who said, "The world is thy ship and not thy home." And which also reminds me of the letter to the Hebrews, which is said, "For this world is not our home. We are looking forward to our everlasting home in heaven." So we are here on a quest together, and all of our great hosts here on the quest are here to help guide you along the path. We're making the journey together. It's not like someone is the leader other than our Lord. And today is the feast of the Nativity of St. John the Baptist, which is a mouthful to say, but he deserves it. And, you know, you think about what he would always say, which is, he must increase, I must decrease. And he also said, prepare the way of the Lord, make his path straight. So we're using a lot of imagery of the ocean and a ship. I really like that Saint Therese of Lisieux quote about this ship is not your, you know, this world is your ship and it's not your home, right? So it's like, it's sort of this temporary journey.
Getting you somewhere on a pilgrimage of faith.
So that's the goal, and this journey is a lot more fun if we have participants. So we will open up the phone lines later if you want to get involved. But that is the Cliff Notes version.
And I like the I've been doing A Life Lived Joyfully for quite a while. Is that like is that what they mean when they say dead name? I'm not supposed to say that anymore.
You can say it all you like.
So A Life Lived Joyfully, I've gotten very used to the like upbeat, like sort of piano thing and saying like a really long title. And so listening to the new music and then seeing if some of our listeners have seen some of the beautiful new artwork and logo. It is like this, it's this beautiful ship like sailing on this serene water with like a beautiful sunset, sunrise, depends if you're a morning person or not. but it's very like Tolkien kind of.
Oh, I
feel
like
for
that.
me.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
I do too. I think it's great.
Let me say, we're going to have upbeat music when we go to the breaks and come back. But the opening music was meant to be like, a
Hobbit's
Pirates of the Caribbean,
Sure.
sailing ship, or Tolkien, But I didn't want it to have too much of like, dun, 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 like the accordion and like a sailor's like for me. Like I didn't want it to be a little too.
Can you
although
imagine instead of my classic like, hey y'all, like ahoy matey.
Oh, I know how we're starting off. Was it Thursday you're back? Yeah. I know how we're starting off that show.
I think I'm not feeling so well. I don't know if I'll be around on Thursday. But I will say this today. I did pass like if you're a car person, excuse me. It's like, I'm just to give you like an image. It's like a 96 like Isuzu situation.
Nice.
Right. Yeah. Thanks. And there was I really like, so all we have is a magnetic medal of St. Benedict on the back of our car because I don't like bumper stickers.
Yeah.
But I like bumper stickers because it's very like, who am I behind here? Who is
Sure.
this? And
Oh yeah.
sometimes it's excessive.
Sometimes it tells you a lot.
Tells you more than you'd like to know a lot of the times. But today, I was like, I don't know, is this the Lord like shining his like is his shining down upon me as we begin the quest today? There was a bumper sticker that had a silhouette of Gandalf. And it said,
nice.
"You shall not pass," like my Isuzu,
Yeah.
And so I was like, "Yeah, I'll take that as a little nod from heaven. It's gonna go well. It's gonna go controversial because it's the Feast and Nativity of Saint John the Baptist."
Yeah.
But I'm excited. I'm excited for the quest. I'm excited for this pilgrimage of faith together, and I'm excited to have you as our producer, Matt. And it's gonna be great. It's gonna be wonderful.
Well, thank you for welcoming me aboard, and I'm happy to be here. So you have an interesting topic for today, and what you sent me was the optics of potential scandal of Catholic dating. Did I get that right?
Yeah. The optics and the potential scandal that Catholic dating can invoke or create. Yeah. Something along those lines.
Tell me a little bit of what you're looking to cover.
Well, if we paid attention to the reading, so my parish is actually St. John the Baptist, so we had a big, gigantic party yesterday, which is as Catholics do. My 16-year-old sister was there, and she was like, I had to walk to the back with my son, as per usual, and she found me and came in, and she was like, I've never seen so many children in my life at a parish. It's a pretty gnarly, there's a lot of kids, and it was great, and it was wonderful. So we had, obviously it's very, very, we're just very excited. So my newly ordained transitional deacon friend preached about the importance of us modeling St. John the Baptist in our willingness to stand up for traditional, sacred Catholic marriage. And he was willing to be beheaded, and I would venture to say that the vast majority of us would rather keep our heads than say, listen, what you're doing, it's not right. It's not right in the eyes of the Lord. It violates his holy commandments, and it's disordered. It's sexually deviant, like whatever it is, right? There's this long list of ways that we can cheapen and destroy the sanctity of marriage. And I mean, politically, that's a whole other thing, but I'm just talking about like in society as a whole, in families, and not being able to stand up or say, listen, I can't go to this wedding because I don't want to like disrupt or, offend. That's like the word of the day. But it really touched my heart. And so I was kind of planning on talking about this anyway, but like St. John the Baptist, I want to sort of offer up my head, out of love for our listeners, out of love for our Lord and his commandments, to share with people ways that are often overlooked about how single Catholic people, right, people who are in the dating world who are Catholic, not the type of Catholics who say, I reject the church, I've fallen away, because we expect for them not to necessarily be living and walking in faith and observing, right, and obeying God's commandments. But for someone who's proclaiming, right, that I'm a Catholic, I'm a faithful Catholic, I am in communion with the church, there are certain ways that they can date and present their relationships, that the optics, maybe the intention and the way that they're dating is not immoral. Maybe they're not committing any grave sins together, like in their relationship, But with social media and like how everyone's presenting themselves and everything they're doing all the time online, I want to emphasize today to our listeners that the optics of what you're doing, even if what you're doing is not in violation of one of the Lord's holy commandments, the optics of what you're doing, how you're posting and what you're sharing about your dating life and about the relationships, right, that are not marriage, can cause scandal to people. And the optics sometimes, I guess people aren't really thinking about it. I guess people aren't thinking like, maybe this looks bad, or maybe someone who thinks like, hey, I'm thinking about becoming Catholic. Well, but if that's how Catholics live, maybe it's not for me. And so it's a little, I mean, we do controversy on the Quest. That's just kind of that's kind of our jam, and it's never to offend, right? It's always to evangelize. It's always out of love, and I can't wait to open up the lines and hear from you all and get some of your experiences, advice, and 2 cents. But yeah, St. John the Baptist really inspired the topic for today, and I just have to say, out of love, I want to share the ways that people are perhaps overlooking and how they date and how they are in relationships that can perhaps scandalize and not be great. So without further ado, I think the first kind of big, the big point and the big like flashing sign is, as Catholics, do you, right, as a faith, like as people who say, I am a faithful Catholic, I'm speaking to you specifically, everyone can listen, but for the people who identify, right, we're all about identity these days. If you identify as a faithful Catholic, do you believe what the Catholic Church officially teaches about marriage? Not what you think it teaches, what you want it to teach, what you hope it will teach, what you think politics will change someday. But do you faithfully believe what the one true church teaches about the sanctity of marriage? Holy matrimony, as we so often used to refer to it as. Because that's kind of our starting point, isn't it? If you're saying that you're a faithful Catholic and you don't agree fully, you don't accept fully the teaching on marriage, what are we doing? Maybe it's time to say, well, I want to be a faithful Catholic, I'm just not there yet. Rather than say I'm a faithful Catholic, but I don't agree with this, you can cause terrible scandal to people. And I'll explain all of that, what that means. No, not scandal like you see in the movies, but something far more serious. And so I'm so excited to have you all with us on The Quest. No longer a life lived joyfully, but the same great host, the same, well, better content, I gotta say. On The Quest, a pilgrimage of faith here on the Guadalupe Radio Network. You can join us every Monday through Friday at 4 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Eastern. You can download the Guadalupe Radio Network app, listen and stream from grnonline.com. We'll be back after a short break.
Dear GRN family, you very likely heard our voices right here asking for your prayers and financial support to help keep your local Catholic radio station on the air. Sammy Rodriguez Jr. here, president of the GRN. Please accept my sincere thank you to everyone who gave a gift of financial support recently during our summer share-a-thon. Your gifts are doing so much good to spread the gospel and to help so many souls know and come closer to Christ. You are family, and you are greatly appreciated.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. We're currently cruising at 39,000 feet. We'll turn that seatbelt sign off for you and let you move about the cabin. Looks like we're about 2 hours and 10 minutes from landing. Plenty of time for you to share your Catholic faith with one another.
Wouldn't it be great if everyone eagerly shared their faith? Why not start today? A friendly suggestion from Guadalupe Radio Network.
Welcome back to The Quest, an extraordinary journey where every step brings us closer to discovering God's love for us. Want to join the conversation? Give us a call at 877 757 9424.
Hey, y'all. It's good to be with you on this beautiful Monday. Welcome back to The Quest. We're on a pilgrimage of faith together. I am not in charge. Thanks be to God. I know you're saying the same thing at the same time. I'm not in charge. But I am with you. I'm with you on the journey, united in the body of Christ, and we are together in the Eucharist, trying to become saints. Let's be the next. Hey, that's my Instagram handle. Let's be the next saints. Let's try anyway. Maybe I should put an asterisk. Let's try anyway. That's all I can do is try. As you may have heard before the break, we are formerly A Life Lived Joyfully, now The Quest. We're on a pilgrimage of faith together. And same great hosts, Monsignor Charles Pope 2 days a week, me 2 days a week, Sarah Soto and Steve Gleason on Wednesdays. Fantastic hosts, I gotta say. Humility is rooted in truth. And I'm a Catholic wife, mom, and speaker. And you want to contact me or find out more information about what I do, you can visit my website at sarahsotospeaks.com. Today on the Feast of the Nativity of St. John the Baptist, say that 5 times fast, we are trying to emulate him, trying to imitate him in his courageousness, standing up for the sanctity of holy matrimony. Again, I said it before the break, I'm offering my head on a platter. Not everybody's going to like what I have to say, but that's just a day that ends in Y for me. But I've got to say it. I've got to say it. I've got to stand up for our faith, and I have to stand up for the sanctity, the sacredness of holy matrimony. It's pretty punk rock. I'm not going to lie to you. So that being said, I do want to kind of put it out there. I'm going to cover a lot of things today, but I so value our listeners, and I so value your advice and your input. Obviously, I'm only one person with my own mind, and so anytime we have calls where people are willing to share, right, and be vulnerable and share their wisdom on the air, it's so deeply appreciated, especially on topics like this, because, you know, I'm not quite at that like ripe age, right? I'm not like middle-aged yet, and I'm just like I'm not a spring chicken, but I know people have so much more life experience and ups and downs, raising teenagers and so on and so forth. And so I'd like to invite you all to give us a call. Give us a call and share advice that you wish you could give single Catholics who are dating. So Catholics that are dating and single, get ready. Turn up those dials, right? People still use dials. 877-757-9424. That's 877-757-9424. Folks, what advice do you wish you could give single Catholics who are dating? Any advice? We'll take it. 877-757-9424. So before the break, we were talking about, first and foremost, if people, we want to be really clear, right? If someone's saying, well, I grew up Catholic, I went to Catholic school, I'm not really like into the Catholic Church, but here's what I think about marriage. Like, we're not looking for anyone's opinion. We're looking for people who say, I am a Catholic, I believe in Catholic Church teaching, who are saying that, right, and out of one side of their mouth, and then their actions are not lining up, and out of the other side of their mouth, they're making decisions that are that demean, right, demean the sanctity of marriage, at least maybe sometimes even on the outside. So the first question that we have to ask, that we were talking about just before the break, is, do you believe in the Catholic Church teaching on marriage, right? And so you've probably heard me go on and on and on about creation and the fall of man. I've had a couple of people come on the show and talk about it, something I'm extremely passionate about. I was never taught growing up what it meant for man to fall. I thought God was some mean guy in the sky who was punishing us for not being obedient, a test of obedience to see if we'd be good little boys and girls. Well, that couldn't be further from the truth, right? He gives us the free will. He gives us free will to either choose him or to reject him. And without going into all of that, Adam and Eve are united as one flesh, right? And so let's think about you for a second. You are one flesh, right? There's no like taking you apart, right? There's no like divvying up your soul, divvying up who you are. It's all one. And in that same, in a similar way, right? The husband and wife are truly one. When they are married, right? When they are sacramentally married and they consummate that marriage, they are no longer two, but one flesh. You may have heard me allude to this before. My grandfather and I were having a conversation after my grandmother had passed away, and they had gone through a lot of ups and downs, as most marriages do. I had witnessed a few of them on the tail end, but a lot of them were before I was born, perhaps when my dad was young as well. And I asked my grandfather, I said, so you two never considered like splitting up? You never considered divorce or anything like that? And he said, Sarah, how could I divorce one half of myself? How could I divorce like the left side of my body or the right side of my body? In that same way that I'm united to my own body, I was united to your grandmother. And it blew me away, right? I mean, he's not a theologian, philosopher. And I mean, he worked for like the county his whole life, very, very simple, humble upbringing. Yet he understood, because he and my grandmother were married at a young age and remained married until she took her dying breath. He understood fully what it meant that the two would no longer be, that they would no longer be two, but one flesh. And so that has to be the basis for our conversation today, right? That has to be, we have to understand that marriage is sacred, marriage is holy, and it is two becoming one. So I will invite you to share as I'm going on and on and on and on and on. 877-757-9424. What's the best advice, or what advice do you wish you could give to Catholics who are dating, single Catholics who are dating? What advice do you wish you could give to them? Let's keep it PG here, folks, but let's what kind of advice would you give to a single Catholic who is dating? There's a lot. I have a whole radio show and I give advice a lot. So what's your advice? What's your wisdom and your experience and what you witness and how our world is today? What would you say to single Catholics who are dating? It is, it's bleak out there, folks. It's bleak. I'm telling you, I wouldn't want to. 877-757-9424. Again, that's 877-757-9424. Give me your best advice for what you would share with Catholics who are single and dating in this weird world. So, first and foremost, you have to recognize the sanctity of holy matrimony for trying to imitate St. John the Baptist, who, again, was beheaded for doing so, for standing up for faithful, holy marriage. If you don't believe what the Catholic Church teaches on marriage, that it is total, fruitful, faithful, and free, right? Like nobody can force you to do it. You need to be open to children conceived naturally, right? In the bond of marriage between a man and a woman. And then it has to be faithful, right? Like it's exclusive. There's nobody else involved. There's no, well, if this doesn't work out, if they end up losing that job and we have to sell the Porsche, like then I'm out. It doesn't work that way, right? It's faithful in good and bad. I talk about this a lot. It's not just for the good times. It's also for the bad times, also in the sickness of life. And so it has to be total, right? You're totally giving yourself. You're laying down your very life. I think it was, I can't remember which cool, trendy Catholic speaker it was, but he was talking about how his new bride was sharing that when her parents got married, the day after their wedding, they went to mass, right? They're at daily mass. And when the priest elevated the host, he began to weep. And after mass, she asked her new husband, why was everything all right? Why were you weeping? And he said, essentially, because I finally understood, right? After they had become united as husband and wife, after they consummated their marriage, he finally understood what the priest meant. And this is just an analogy, obviously, right? There's no sexualization in the Trinity or the Eucharist. I want to be real clear about that. But he holds up the host, and the man realizes he finally gets what it means to say, this is my body given up for you, because he had given it in totality, right? He had given his entire self to his bride, and she had received him, right? Like just by the very designs of our bodies. This is why when Adam sees Eve, immediately upon seeing her, he says, this at last is bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh. Like he didn't Google it. He didn't hear it on Guadalupe Radio Network, although I think it would have been his Catholic network of choice. It's just a guess. But I mean, he didn't have to look it up. He knew, because of the way she had been created, because of the way her body looked, because of the way his body looked, he knew that the two had been made for each other, to be gifts to one another. And so if you're off base with that, if you're like a polygamist, or if you're like totally, if you're like, you can get married and divorced as many times as you want, it's no big deal. If you're on that if you're in that belief, I'm not necessarily speaking to you, but I'm talking to people who believe in the sanctity of marriage between one man and one woman for the whole of life, who are open to children and faithful to one another. And so for those of us who do believe in Catholic Church teaching on marriage, it should certainly influence the way we date. It should influence the way Catholics date. If they really believe that marriage is good and holy and true according to Catholic Church teaching, then it should absolutely affect the decisions that they make, the way that they date, the kind of person that they choose to date, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That being said, sometimes people who say that they are faithful Catholics make decisions or live in a way, or date in a way specifically, that involves optics that are not good. So if you're not really familiar with what I mean by that, let me give you a quick example. So first of all, I want to invite you to call in if you've got advice for single Catholics who are dating, because it's so rough out there, folks. 877-757-9424. Again, that's 877-757-9424. What's your dating advice for single Catholics? 877-757-9424. Listen, what I mean by optics, bad optics, and I'll give you, like I said, the perfect example. So a frequent guest here on The Quest is my good friend, Father Brady. He's a priest with the Society of Our Lady of the Most Holy Trinity. And when I first met him about a decade ago, I asked him to hear my confession. And I can't remember exactly where we were in this building, but he said, okay, let's go to the conference room. There's no confessionals in this building, right? So we walk to this conference room, and as soon as we go in, it's a big conference table. It's a conference room. As soon as we go in, I sit down, and he doesn't. He goes around the other side of the room and opens up. Basically, there's 4 walls, and one wall is just window, and there's blinds, and they're closed. He walks over to the blinds, and he opens them up. He opens them up all the way, and I'm thinking, why is he opening up the blinds? So there's light in here, so he probably isn't doing it for light. Why would he be doing this? And then it kind of dawned on me. I was kind of like green, still coming back to the church. And I'm like, what does he think of me? Does he think that he's like in danger of some kind? Does he think I'm going to, it was offending me. It was confusing me. And at the time, it was hurting me. Because of the place that I was in, and the way that the world kind of molds your mind. And I was like, wow, what must he think of me? And as time went on, as I got to know him and I became closer and closer to Soto, the Society of Our Lady of the Most Holy Trinity, I realized something, and that was he always wanted to have good optics in our relationship, right? I was a single woman, and he was a Catholic priest. And he wanted to make sure, beyond the shadow of a doubt, that there was no reason for anyone whatsoever to think poorly of me, that I was doing something that I shouldn't be doing something scandalous. He wanted to have good optics in our relationship, so there was never a question that either one of us, right, had bad intention. What I mean by that is we don't ride in cars together alone. We don't go to the movies alone. We don't do things that, are reserved for people who are dating. And that's important so that it sends a very clear message to people about what kind of relationship we have and that there's no room for confusion. So if you care about the message that you're sending to people in your relationships and how you live your life because you want to be a good, faithful Catholic, it's important that you listen to our next segment on the optics, good or bad, of dating here on the Nativity of the Feast of St. John the Baptist on the newly branded, fantastic The Quest, formerly a Life Lived Joyfully. I'm your Monday, Thursday host, Sarah Soto. We'll be back after a short break. Remember, folks, you can listen Monday through Thursday, 4 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Eastern, to The Quest and all the great hosts that are on. You can stream from grnonline.com or listen on your Guadalupe Radio Network app. We're always so excited to be here with you, and we can't wait to chat right after this short break.
This is Life News Radio. I'm Jim Anderson. Media outlets around the world seem to be taking an abortion-friendly stance as they trumpet news of the first Polish hospital to be fined for refusing to provide an abortion. Pro-life doctors assert that surgical abortion is not safe, nor is it the best answer to mortal crisis in pregnancy. Induced delivery, even of a child not yet able to live outside the womb, is clearly the safest means of answering the most severe medical crises, they say. Added to this, Polish law requires medical documentation before any means are taken to end pregnancy. We'll have more this week as the story unfolds. The Euthanasia Prevention Coalition is documenting how even limited assisted suicide laws, once approved, are regularly expanded. From Oregon, of course, to New Mexico, Washington State, Colorado, Hawaii, California, New Jersey, Vermont, and all of Canada. Alex Schadenberg says proponents of the grisly practice continually seek expansion of arranged dying. This is Life News Radio.
Isn't life an awesome gift? Married couples have the power to co-create an eternal life with God that will last forever. God has also designed us so that we can plan, can order our families effectively, naturally, and without the artificial means of chemicals or barriers. Register for classes in NFP, Natural Family Planning, near you, online at ccli.org or call 800-745-8252.
In other stories, abortion-friendly Democrats in the U.S. Senate have blocked a bill to compel the White House to protect medical rights to conscience. And Monday, June 24th, is the second anniversary of the Dobbs Supreme Court decision, ending 50 years of abortion as law under Roe v. Wade. For pro-life headlines delivered to your email address daily, sign up at lifenews.com. This has been Life News Radio.
You're listening to The Quest, a pilgrimage of faith. Have a question or something to share? Call the show live at 877-757-9424.
Hey y'all, welcome back to The Quest. I'm your Monday, Thursday host, Sarah Soto. So happy to be here with you all on our newly rebranded. You're like, what is this? I always tune in so faithfully because A Life Lived Joyfully is my favorite show of all time. What is this? This voice sounds familiar. Well, you're with me, Sarah Soto. I'm usually with you. I'm always with you on Mondays and Thursdays here on the Guadalupe Radio Network. But we have recently undergone a rebrand. And now A Life Lived Joyfully, which is like a whole sentence, is The Quest. And we are all together on this pilgrimage of faith. We got new branding. We got a lot of new stuff going on, except you got your same great hosts, same days, same time, same fantastic network, the Guadalupe Radio Network. Listen, folks, today, in honor of the nativity of St. John the Baptist, one of 3 nativities celebrated in the liturgical calendar year. Maybe you know, maybe you don't. You could always call and tell me. But seriously, if you have advice for young people who are dating, Catholics who are dating, not people who are trying to live as secularly as possible. Young Catholics who are trying to navigate this, the only word that comes to mind, having been more recently married, 2.5 years now, is this funky dating landscape. Boy, is it weird. You know what? Maybe in honor of our new rebrand, The Quest, I'll start sharing some funny, yet a little stomach-turning dating horror stories from before I met my wonderful, amazing husband. Boy, do I have a few of those. So listen, I'm talking in honor of the Feast of the Nativity of St. John the Baptist because his head was offered up on a platter in order to stand up for the sanctity of marriage. And I hope to do, in his gigantic shadow, I hope to honor him today and ask for his intercession for my marriage and marriages everywhere, and for lawmakers and for anyone who fights for the sanctity of holy matrimony. So, folks, here we go. If you are Catholic and you are dating, you need to be aware, and you have the responsibility as someone who has been, let's just say, fully initiated, right? So you have been baptized, you've received your first Holy Communion, and you are confirmed with the Holy Spirit. If you are fully initiated and you are catechized and formed, then you have a responsibility. You have a responsibility to live out the faith. Okay. Do I mean that you need to go downtown to your city's club scene and get a megaphone and stand on a speaker and say, repent and believe in the Holy Gospel? Yes, of course, if you've been listening to me for any amount of time, I mean that you should definitely be doing that. But in case that's not your cup of tea, you should be, with everything that you can, and look, I'm not saying go quit your job right now if your job makes you do a diversity and inclusion seminar once a month. Okay, listen, just be reasonable, right? Especially if you have a family to take care of. This is very much a picking your battles thing, but how you live your life and what you share on social media is what I really want to focus on as far as the optics of dating, of Catholics dating. So I used to teach an abstinence until marriage class to high schoolers, and part of it was navigating some ins and outs, do's and don'ts of social media. And I would always share with them a little bit of my own Sarasota Flava Flav, and that would be the easy way to remember what you're doing and posting and sharing on social media. And I'm in South Texas here, for those of you who are not anticipating a Spanish word coming up. I would tell them that when it comes to social media, when it comes to using my phone in general, I like to follow a rule, simple rule, instead of being like, well, you shouldn't do this and make sure you're off your screen by this time and don't have this social media, right? Whatever it is, right? Whatever you're doing with your phone, be it text, email, kids don't email, or social media, right? Whatever you do on your phone, you'd better be 100% comfortable with your grandma standing over your shoulder as you do it. It's a good rule of thumb. We call it the abuelita rule. So think of your little old grandma standing right there over your shoulder as you send that text, as you take that selfie, as you swipe through dating profiles, as you engage in conversation, right? Standing over you as you talk on the phone. What would she say? What would she do? Because if you're doing things and saying things that you would not feel comfortable doing in front of your grandmother, I would venture to say that you probably are not sending a good message about what Catholic dating should be to those around you. And what I mean is that if you are not married, right? So I'm talking to folks who are engaged. I'm talking to people who are in committed relationships and moving towards engagement. I'm talking to people who are dating, right? Going on a date here or there, getting to know somebody. I'm talking to you folks. When you share things on social media, or when you even share with your friends in conversation, Catholic or not, when you share things about your relationship or your dating that leave room for poor interpretation, you can seriously scandalize people. And trust me when I say you don't want to be standing on Judgment Day and guilty of causing scandal to people. Meaning you are falsely representing what the church teaches and perhaps even pushing people away from or helping them to reject accepting and entering the one true holy Catholic and Apostolic Church. That's a really serious offense to God. What we should do and what we should strive to do all the time is to be like St. John the Baptist and to stand up for the sanctity of marriage, even in ways that we might not have previously thought we could. What I mean by that is, for those of you who are engaged, dating, in a relationship, whatever it is, you're not married. You're not sacramentally married. When you are dating, you should make decisions and live in a way where there is no room for poor interpretation. What do I mean by that? Let's say you are in a relationship and you are discerning getting engaged. So it's serious, right? You're talking seriously about getting engaged. This is just for an example. And one of you is invited to an event somewhere, right? Perhaps for work or something. And you've got to travel and stay a few days. When you invite your significant other who is not your spouse, and you tell people, hey, we're going to We're going, I was going to say Vegas. That's a horrible, we're going to Sacramento for the weekend. And, so-and-so's got a work thing. And, he invited me to go. He must really like me or whatever. I don't know. That's how women talk, I think. I'm a woman. I know. And so I'm so excited. I've never been to California. It's going to be so beautiful. It's beautiful, but okay. So I'm going to go and we're going to stay in this amazing hotel. I'm doing a timeout with my hands. You can't see it. But I'm going time out. Let's pause the scene here. Let's say you're talking to somebody who's a Christian and they're thinking about becoming Catholic, and they're an Orthodox Christian. They know that you're a Catholic. What they've just heard from you is, I'm not married, but I am Catholic. I go to Mass, I believe in the Catholic faith. I'm wearing a crucifix here. A scapular is sticking out of the back of my shirt. Okay, I got an image of the Virgin Mary in the background of my work computer. Okay, I'm sending a message here. I believe in the Catholic faith. And then you're talking to this, say, let's call them, they're a Lutheran, right? And they're thinking, oh, maybe the Catholic Church has really got it together here. Lutheran's not been a hot topic these days, right? No statues of Martin Luther floating around anywhere. So you say, I'm going to Sacramento with my boyfriend. And he's got a work thing, so we're gonna go to the vineyard, right? They have vineyards in Sacramento. I don't really know the layout of California very, very well. And I'm proud of that because I'm from Texas. It's the only state, period. So what you've just communicated to this person is perhaps you were thinking about becoming Catholic, but let me assure you that people who are faithful Catholics stay overnight together, and we all know what that implies. And if the person decides I'm not going to receive the sacraments, because in that church you can say that you're Catholic but live in a way that is contrary to Catholic Church teaching, right? Meaning engaging in marital relations when you're not married and like openly speaking about it, you have just caused scandal. And you don't want to, there's so many reasons why you don't want to do that. But think about what you, first of all, my husband and I, when we were dating, we made one day trip, right, to visit his dying grandmother. And he came and picked me up at my apartment. We drove to visit his dying grandmother, and then we drove right back, and then he took me home to my apartment. We didn't have sleepovers, and it was crystal clear, okay? No one had room for interpreting something about our relationship that would have brought scandal forward. Look, am I perfect? Are we perfect? Definitely not. That's not what I'm implying. But it is so important to me, especially because, and this brings me to my next point, I was a youth minister at the time. I had like souls that had been like, I was like in charge of forming, right? And they were all, hey, hi Iris, I know you're listening. I have some of my former youth listen to the show very faithfully. Hey, don't worry, it's still me, okay? It's the quest now, formerly A Life Lived Joyfully, but I'm here. Do you know how awful it would have been if my youth group kids, I like to call them, they're adults now, but if my kids would have heard me teach them about the sanctity of marriage, about the value and importance of waiting for marriage and the dignity of their bodies. Do you know how awful it would have been if I would have been preaching about it, and then they saw me like on a beach in Barbados with my boyfriend? Do you know what the implication is? Like, let's stop and think. Maybe, or like, well, Sarah, I don't have a youth group. Can I go to a beach in Barbados? No, girl, you can't. You can't go to a beach in Barbados. You need to wait until you're married. Because you want to have this, right? You want to live like you're married. You want marriage. Marriage is a good desire, right? Like our human sexuality is good, right? Like all of those things are good, but it can become disordered if we're jumping the gun, trying to act like we're a married couple, travel like we're a married couple, stay in hotel rooms like a married couple. I mean, like, forget about it if you're like, okay, it's bad enough, right? If you're like an accountant doing these things that says that they're Catholic. But if you work in ministry, like if you work for a diocese, if you work in ministry, especially with people like in marriage, in formation, and I mean like, and you are living in a way that causes scandal or has really bad optics, you're living with someone and you're not annulled, or you're divorced, not annulled, and you've got someone and you guys are shacked up together, but you're the such and such person at the diocese of such and such place. I mean, it's really serious. This you might think, well, God will forgive me. God understands. I've been married before. I already have children. It's not like I was 18, and I'm shacked up with somebody. I mean, like I'm a woman, or I'm a man of a certain age. I don't know what people say. And it's okay. I'm going to be really crystal clear about it, and don't turn off the radio. Listen to what I have to say out of love for you. The same things do apply to you. Even if you have been married, even if you haven't, you're 18 years old or you're 48 years old. If you are a Catholic and you are proclaiming that you believe and uphold the Catholic faith, you can cause scandal to someone whether or not you have children or not. It is a very serious offense to live together and not be married. The privilege of living together and as uniting together as husband and wife, renewing that commitment in the sacred marital act, it's a privilege of the sacrament of marriage. And imitating it or pretending that you're married when you're not, living like you're married when you're not, like dating, getting engaged and setting a wedding date when the other person or you haven't been annulled yet, this is very serious. You might think you're doing okay. You might even do something as dangerous as presuming God's mercy. But listen, it is very real. Your example of how you live your Catholic faith. Oh, nobody pays attention to me, Sarah. I'm just a little old so-and-so in a podunk town. Someone is paying attention. And so be a good example. Have good optics in your relationship. Don't leave room for people to seriously misinterpret how you are living. Don't let it for a second scandalize them and don't give them room to think, well, Catholics don't really believe what they say they believe. Do they even believe this, that, or the other? Don't give them room. You're here listening to The Quest on the Guadalupe Radio Network. I'm your host, Sarah Soto. I'm with you Mondays and Thursdays. We're formerly a life lived joyfully and so joyful to be with you on The Quest. We'll be back after a short break. Comment on YouTube. You can call in to 877-757-9424.
Arm yourself for the daily spiritual battle. Visit St. Michael's Armory for beautiful sacramentals, recast antique metals and religious jewelry, and our exclusive sterling silver and wool brown scapulars. Take up these means to strengthen your soul and arm yourself well for the battle of life. stmichaelsarmory.com. That's stmichaelsarmory.com. Spiritual armor for the battle of life.
I was raised a Catholic and went to church every Sunday faithfully. I met a boy and he was non-Catholic, so I left the church to be with him. When I was away from church, I yearned to be home. What brought me back was my longing for the Eucharist. The Eucharist fills me with a spirit that you can't find anywhere else. I have a peace when I walk through the doors of the Catholic Church, like that's where I belong.
We invite you to take another look at the Catholic Church. Visit CatholicsComeHome.org today.
Hi, Debbie Georgiani here for Adam Bly, co-host of The Spirit World. Our mailbag is getting pretty full. You all have such wonderful, fascinating questions about angels, demons, and how the spiritual and physical worlds interact. So on our next episode of The Spirit World, Adam and I will do a rapid-fire Q&A with both questions received by email and your live calls. Listen this Saturday at 10 a.m. Central, right here on the Guadalupe Radio Network.
This is The Quest from the studios of the Guadalupe Radio Network. Share the show with a friend. You can find us on social media. Want to listen again? We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you enjoy listening to podcasts.
Hey, y'all. Welcome back to The Quest. I'm your host, Sarah Soto. I'm with you Mondays and Thursdays. I'm a Catholic wife, mom, and I don't like saying speaker, but I do a lot of talking professionally. That seems more like me. If you want to contact me or ask me any questions, find out more information about the rantings and ravings of my spot on The Quest, you can visit my website at sarahsotospeaks.com. And today's show, in honor of the nativity of the Feast of the Nativity of St. John the Baptist, we have been standing up for the sanctity of holy matrimony and talking about Catholic dating and how it can be, Catholic people who are dating can set a beautiful example for young people or for other Catholics, people who are thinking about becoming Catholic. You can set a beautiful example of chastity and celibacy and respect and honor, and how making the right moves can convey all of those things without words, right? So there's so many things we can say without words, right? Your friend is talking to you, and they're saying like how, I don't know, let me think of something really dumb to say. Oh, babies in the womb aren't human, right? That's a dumb thing to say. And so like they're like, babies in the womb aren't human, and you're not saying anything, right? Because you're letting them finish their dumb thought, and you roll your eyes, right? So it says a lot. You don't have to say anything. And so as Catholics, right, as lay people who are in the world, who have discerned that they are called to marriage, and they're dating, right, discerning, and that's, I mean, I've got lots of shows talking about how you should date, what dating should look like practically, but I want, today, it may feel like a negative show, and you can send your comments in on YouTube, and Facebook, or you can call 877-757-9424. What's good dating advice for Catholics who are dating, single people who are dating? I don't know, I have to make that caveat, but 877-757-9424. What's your dating advice for Catholics? Good, rock solid dating advice. 877-757-9424. Or you can share, we had Timoteo, I'm going to say it right just because I'm from Texas. He said that he looks at his married friends as being two halves of one whole. Preach, Timoteo. That is true. That's how you should look at people who are married, because they are. They're no longer two, but one flesh. And it's not like people sometimes are afraid of being married because they're like, I'm going to lose half of myself so that I can become one whole other person. First of all, it's not even like that. I am still every bit of as obnoxious as I was before I got married, right? But now, in this very special and beautiful way, I am one flesh with my husband, and it was so absolutely worth waiting for and respecting. I mean, we dated for six months, right? And that's another thing too. And this, you have probably, if you're familiar, right? If you're a longtime listener, you have heard me say that if you are in love with somebody and you are attracted to somebody, right? You've done all those other steps. You discern God has called you to marriage, and you've fallen in love with somebody, and you've decided that the Lord has called you to marry this person, and you've had those conversations together, right? Not just one-ended conversations, but one-sided. There is no need on God's green earth to quote unquote date for like 5 years before getting married. There is no reason. Oh, I want to live together first just to make sure it's all right. Well, the guy's not a car. You can't test drive him, okay? It's an awful thing. It's an awful analogy. We don't test people to make sure that they're good enough or decent enough. We discern through dating the most important things, right? Our morals, our values, and make sure that we're on the same page, and that there's attraction there, and we want the same things out of life, right? And that you can make this work with someone in a marriage no matter what happens. And that you understand fully that there's no like out, right? It's just not fun anymore. Okay, that's not, you're not on the same page. But if you're in love with somebody and you're attracted to them, and you are so in love with them and so attracted to them that you want their children, right? Or you want them to have your children, the longer and longer you date, or God forbid, shack up together, obviously, the more temptation you're going to have. The more temptation you're going to have to act like a married couple when you are not. And so I am all for a short engagement, a short courtship. Listen, it doesn't work for everybody. Sometimes you need a year, right? But if you've been dating someone for 2 or 3 years and it's not moving towards marriage, something is off. If you're called to marriage, you've been dating for a year or 2 or 3 or 4, something is off. And maybe that's the most controversial thing I'll say today. But there is a reason you aren't already married if you have been together and shared a life together in many ways for 2 or 3 plus years, right? We are, it pains me to say it because I've been there, y'all. It's wasting time. That being said, if you are serious about dating someone and you do see yourselves called to marriage, then you have like I said, it's a privilege different than the married life, right? Than the conjugal life. But it is a privilege. You have a privilege to be an example to other people in the world, not just Catholics, but you have an example to be a faithful Catholic couple who is not married in a really remarkable way. You have the opportunity to communicate to people that you don't do sleepovers, even though the whole world says you should, starting after something awful like date number 3 or something. I tried to break up with my husband like 6 times, okay, before I got like maybe three times. But very seriously, I was like, I don't know about all this. And for the world to pressure you to say that you're supposed to engage in like the most intimate of intimate acts by date 3 or date 4, let me just tell you, if you feel pressured to do those things, if you feel pressured by the world to move in together, if you feel pressure to travel together and stay overnight together, that's a big win for the evil one. Because when we cause scandal to people, again, who are considering becoming Catholic, who are Christian, even people who are not Christian and don't profess any Christian faith whatsoever, if we're communicating that anybody who wants to date should and ought to stay the night, have sleepovers, act like they're married, travel together, live together, but not be married, it absolutely belittles the sanctity of marriage. Whether you like that or not, whether you like what I'm saying or not, people who are living together, people who are married by the court that are Catholic, I say married with quotes around it, they're living contrary to the faith. Because if we put our faith in Jesus Christ, not in the world, not in the media, not what our friends think, right? Not what our best friends, their kids, they got married in the court. Everybody went. It was beautiful. We had a great big party. Listen, if there's going to be serious division in your family if you don't attend a non-Catholic wedding of a Catholic child, right, or a cousin or whatever, have a conversation with your priest about it. But I would say the easy answer for the vast majority of those situations is you should speak up and speak out against people who are belittling the sanctity of marriage. That means you parents of young people, you have got to, and I'm begging you from the bottom of my heart, you have got to stop telling your teenagers, whatever you do, just be safe. We have got to stop telling our teenagers that, because whether you like it or not, the message of whatever you do, just be safe is permissive. And we don't want to give permission. We don't want to give our permission, essentially our blessing, to our teenagers, to our young adult children, to anyone to commit serious sin and to violate the sanctity of marriage. The conjugal act unites people in a way that nothing else can, and that bond is not designed to be broken. Having worked with teenagers, thousands of teenagers, for years and years and years, I can tell you wholeheartedly that acting like you're married, having marital relations outside of marriage, tears people apart. Thanks, Timoteo. I'm glad I pronounced your name correctly. We had one more comment. Thanks. Congrats from K.A. Christian. Congrats on rebranding the awesome show. Some advice I give my single Catholic friends is to not be afraid to go deep with your beloved and pray for and with each other. What a beautiful thought to end our first newly branded episode of The Quest, formerly A Life Lived Joyfully. I'm your Monday, Thursday host, Sarah Soto, Catholic wife, mom, and speaker. Visit my website, Sarah Soto Speaks, or find me on Instagram at Let's Be the Next Saints. Thank you all for listening, and God bless you.
Faith, hope, charity. This is the Guadalupe Radio Network.